Five Nights at Freddy's 2 did what the critics and the box office prognosticators said it wouldn't. All the records have been broken here, according to Anthony D'Alessandro and Deadline magazine. Roughly a week ago, we talked about what we thought was going to be a huge whiff by these very same box office prognosticators, suggesting that FNAF 2 was going to pull in $70 million on a global scale. And notably, that was going to be $35 to $40 million domestically. And as of today, we now know how wrong that was. Not only slightly wrong or moderately wrong, but it was absolutely ridiculously dead wrong. With Five Nights at Freddy's now, as of Sunday morning, projecting to haul in $63 million. Not around the planet of Earth, but just from North America alone. Renegade Online. Well, folks, welcome back. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. It's good to see all of you out there once again. And if you are like one of the many watching this video, not yet subscribed to this channel, please do take a moment and turn that little red subscribe button to gray. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and of course, please do leave a comment before you head out the door today. Make sure to join us every Sunday and Wednesday afternoon right here at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show. Well, Jason Blum and Scott Cawthon have done what nobody in the Hollywood trades said was possible. And they've scored $63 million on the opening weekend off of an estimate less than a week ago that suggested 35 to 40. Now, what do we always say when it comes to radical under or over performance of a box office film at this point in time? Well, if they screwed the pooch by this much coming in, and it's this much, in this case, overperforming, then the real numbers, by the time we get them, say Monday or Tuesday morning, are probably going to be even higher, in this case, than the $63 million domestically suggested right now by Deadline for Five Nights at Freddy's 2. While the first movie cost a cool $20 to $23 million, the second entry in this movie franchise is reportedly coming in closer to $50 million. And quite honestly, that's not much of a surprise given the success of the first. And one of the things that we need to remind the audience of out there watching this video right now is that Jason Blum himself, the head of BLUMHOUSE, who works with Atomic Monster and some of these other production companies that do the horror flicks under the Blum franchises, well, he even said outright that they had made a clean profit on the first Five Nights at Freddy's movie before a single movie ticket had even sold for it because of the big paycheck that Comcast Universal afforded them to get it onto Peacock. Now, again, that was a day and date release. And this movie has come out in a totally different window and frame for a cinematic release. This one being the weekend after Thanksgiving, not the weekend of or before Thanksgiving, but the weekend fully after, 10 days after Thanksgiving. And it still pulled off what it did, doing as Deadline said, setting all the records or breaking all the records. Let's get to the details here from Anthony D'Alessandro at Deadline magazine. Even though Universal Blumhouse Atomic Monsters FNAF 2 at $63 million domestic didn't beat the original movie's $80 million opening, it was still pretty damn good, particularly for a PG-13 horror flick in December. Let's take a look at the Emma Tammy directed film, which also raked in $46 million abroad for a $109 million global opening. It should be noted that the sequel was a pure theatrical release, unlike its first chapter, which went day and date with Peacock. And again, I want to put into perspective, even if we throw out the big fat paycheck that Comcast Universal / Peacock absolutely would have once again cut to Jason Blum, Blumhouse, and by extension, Scott Cawthon, the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, this movie looks to have made its entire production budget back, hat in hand, on its opening 3-day weekend. That's right, a $50 million production, hauling in about $110 million globally. Might even be a little bit higher by the time we got the real numbers. But when you do the breakdowns of what they would have received in a higher order on the domestic side, a little bit less, of course, on the international side, no big overperformance in China, something like Zootopia 2 and Disney is contending with. Well, that means that $50 million outlay to get this film shot, color graded, sound edited itself, and everything under the sun to have this movie ready to roll out in theaters, well, all those costs were recovered in 3 days. Here's all the records that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 set. Biggest #1 opening weekend for a movie during a post-Thanksgiving weekend. That means not the Black Friday Thanksgiving weekend, but the weekend following that, beating last year's record set by Moana 2, which had a second weekend in the post-holiday frame of $51.2 million. Yeah, let's say that again. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, with a crappy frickin' Rotten Tomatoes garbage critic score, absolutely smoked Disney's Moana 2 from 1 year ago.
Did not see that coming.
There's virtually no inflationary adjustment between 24 and 25 that has a real impact on these numbers that we need to account for. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, Freddy Fazbear, Chica, the whole crew absolutely wiped the floor with Moana. In addition, the biggest weekend ever in the post-Thanksgiving period for all titles at $150 million, ahead of last year's record $137. Biggest December horror movie opening ever, topping 1997's Scream 2 at $32.9 million. Now, granted, if we put a real rate on there, a real inflationary rate, Scream 2 at $32.9 million would absolutely be outperforming FNAF 2, but not by nearly as much as you might think. Biggest December opening for Universal Pictures, beating 2005's King Kong at $50 million. Again, the same argument would apply here for Scream 2. Biggest opening for PG-13 horror film in 2025, surpassing Predator Badlands at $40 million. Another Disney movie that has been obliterated in the same type of genre. Second largest horror opening of 25, behind only Conjuring the Last Rites at $84 million. With this debut, BLUMHOUSE Atomic Monster now holds 4 of the top 10 biggest horror openings of the year. And it's also the third biggest opening for a PG-13 horror film after 2023's Five Nights at Freddy's at $80 million and 2013's World War Z at $66.4.
Once my pants are on, I make gold records.
When Drunk 3PO and I went to go see Five Nights at Freddy's 2 in the theater Thursday night at Universal Studios in Orlando on the big screen, number 17 at Cinemark Theaters, which was, I was honestly blown away at the quality of this theater. A 2-storied screen with a balcony and one of the most amazing sound systems I've ever heard. And you guys know me, I am a big audio video nerd. I'm a huge critic. I was absolutely floored by how good it was. He and I had a conversation shortly before the movie started. And Jay looked to me and he said, you know, you and I are the only two guys that I'm aware of that have not gone to sleep on this film. You and I are the only two that believes this movie is going to radically overperform what the projections are. And I looked at him and I said, you know me, you've met Renegade Jr. He's a 14-year-old kid who's grown up with FNAF. One thing that I have learned is that you never, ever, ever bet against Scott Cawthon, and you never, ever bet against Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, it's hard to tell at this point what the leg out is really going to be. Even Renegade Jr. told me that his feeds were flooded with friends of his that had already shown him links to this movie being pirated almost instantly because of the international dateline and when this movie dropped in China hours before we got it here in the States. That is going to be an issue, but that's been an issue for Hollywood for quite some time. But that doesn't change the dynamic that Scott Cawthon and Jason Blum walked away with a massive paycheck from Universal, Comcast, NBC, Peacock, all the boys and girls out there under Brian Roberts, and made a profit before this movie sold a single ticket in the theaters. Five Nights at Freddy's is far more akin to, say, a Transformers movie than it is a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, meaning that the movies themselves are merely advertisements that the audience lovingly pays top dollars to see, to then go turn around and buy more video games and a ton of merch. And as somebody who just got back from Universal Studios in Orlando, once again, I may have bought some more Five Nights at Freddy's merch on top of what I bought back at Halloween Horror Nights 2 months ago. Never, ever, ever go to sleep on Five Nights at Freddy's. Never, ever, ever go to sleep on this franchise. And for those of you wondering how did this happen, we talked about this months ago, but many people seem to have forgotten. When the Minecraft movie came out about 8 months ago now, the reality is that we saw an uptick in the desire of the younger generation. The generations like Renegade Jr., the 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that made Minecraft an event and turned it into a damn near billion-dollar box office picture. And the reason is because these kids, these younger generation folks, realized, many of them, unfortunately for the first time in their lives, how much fun it is actually socializing in person with their friends and going to see something that they all love together online while playing a video game, sitting in their own bedrooms with headphones on, maybe even talking to each other on live chat. But when they get to go see this on the big screen and sit next to each other, it's a thing. And this is one of the reasons why Netflix has its place in the world, but it's never ever going to be able to replace the absolute American semblance that is the big screen, the silver screen, and going to see movies together. And I'm hoping beyond hope and praying that movies like Minecraft and movies like Five Nights at Freddy's are waking up the youngest generations out there to the magic that is the movies. And let's hope that Hollywood keeps making a lot more of these.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.